Hey, Fitz, welcome to Mitiga Mike.
Hey, good to be here.
So for those of our viewers who don't know who you are, maybe they were under a rock because you've been in this industry since there was an industry. Give us a little background on who you are and what you do and what you're doing now.
Yeah, well, Greg Fitzgerald's the name. Been around here and part of the OG, old guard of cybersecurity. Been fortunate to see this thing, everything from a software firewall, and when John McAfee was, before he was absolutely crazy, the first kind of antivirus, all the way through now to where I'm running a company with a co-founder here called Sevco Security, all about visibility. And the whole concept that we are understanding, having been through 11 companies in that 27-year period, is that we keep selling all this technology, but most of the companies don't even know what they've got. They don't know what devices, what users, what applications, the vulnerabilities associated to all those. And so we need to help them. And we've been creating a technology that can help companies do that for the past 5 years.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most interesting things about asset intelligence is some people just think it's like laptops maybe or virtual machines. But like you said, it's the different users and the applications and all the other pieces. What are you seeing out there? What are you seeing in terms of what people are looking for to integrate into that?
Yeah, it's a great question. If we take a slight step back on the context, 10 years ago, IT and cybersecurity was relatively simple, in quotes, in the sense of you were either a Dell shop or an HP shop or Lenovo shop, and you centralized all that technology and you knew what you had, the life cycle of those things, you knew the applications, you knew who had access to those applications. And frankly, thank you to Microsoft, First Tuesdays and a coordinated understanding of vulnerabilities in the software and the operating systems, you kind of had your hands around it. 5 years ago, it kind of blew up. And in the sense of you have everything getting connected to the network, pretty much anybody can get an application and load it on their desktop. Access rights have been expanded like crazy because there's nuances. And now you've got third-party supply chains that are all connected. It's gotten untenable for a human to keep up with all of this. And so what we're seeing is that organizations that are forward thinking in proactive security postures are realizing, okay, I bought the requisite technologies for EDR, for my SIM, for my identity access management, but I know that I'm not covering everything. I'm very worried, and I understand that I need to see more. So what we see is in the industry trend is that those that are proactive and taking proactive measures and reducing their risk significantly are getting an overarching view of their organization. And they're doing so without an agent, without trying to install more stuff, but instead make they have today talk to each other, work. And so with that, again, kind of a little bit about Sevco and other technologies in our industry, we are providing that visibility on the cybersecurity side. There's the same thing that runs in on observability on the IT side, like ITSM technologies, like a ServiceNow, which focuses on the IT side. Sevco and other technologies like us are focused more on the cybersecurity side, where we integrate into all the existing tools and systems they've got for EDR and identity access management, two-factor authentication, all of those pieces, so that you get a look at it. And it can look, again, like you said, devices, users, the cloud applications, and all that that's interconnected to everything. And now that they got a huge inventory, now they can do something about it. So from what we're seeing in the technology area too, is inventory is kind of a baseline one. They realize that the old inventory on the IT side, they're insufficient, they're not fast, they're broken, they're controlled by the IT guys, so they're not necessarily sharing everything in the timely fashion that security guys need to be able to protect themselves. Because once they get that inventory, then they can do things like prioritization. Like, I need to know what to work on first. I'm overwhelmed as it is as a job. So I know that I can't get everything at the same time. So help me. And that's what they're looking for technologies to help them do.
Yeah, let's double click on prioritization because when you start talking about all these devices, physical and virtual, and then cloud and apps and identities, it's a lot. It's a lot of content. and you're trying to determine, well, of this, what do I need to focus on first and prioritize that information. I think one of the most interesting things that is sort of provided on that side is this notion of business context. So I've got all these technical bits and bytes, right, telling me about these assets, but also having some knowledge about what's critical and what's important, and how's that working to the prioritization model?
Good question. The prioritization that exists today, for the most part, is from the vulnerability assessment and management technologies, where they are matching up what they find. And each one, whether it be Qualys, Tenable, Rapid7, or third party, they find their own things. They have their own databases.
Hmm.
And then they are discerning, like based on severity that their own engineers have kind of qualified, whether it's severity 1 or a 10. So, low or high. The challenge with that is that it's only coming from one perspective, right? That particular vendor's. And again, where we see prioritization is it's much more contextual in nature. Let me give you an example. If Chrome comes out and says that there's a severe, vulnerability and it needs to be patched or updated, well, in an organization with thousands to tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of users, might freak out and be like, "Oh my God, this is an issue." But with the context of who is using that Chrome, right, and who has or has not already patched that system, they can reduce that volume of what really needs to happen. So an organization may Sally the secretary might be like, "I'm worried about this." Well, guess what, Sally? You don't use Chrome. You're a Firefox user. So it's not that relevant. Still
Yeah.
needs to be patched in case she opens it up, but it reduces the burden on the security people and the IT people who are responsible for patching or updating the systems and interrupting the users and their business availability on the
Yeah.
application.
Yeah. That helps make it a little bit more real world, right? Not only for IT operations and security, but it kind of just brings everything back down to earth. Like, all right, folks, this is where we need to go direct our efforts for the next couple days, right? We need to address everybody that's on, to your point, Google Chrome, for example. I think that's really valuable. Now, you mentioned something there. You mentioned vulnerability scanners, and of course, you think Tenable and Rapid7, Qualys, but there's a lot of open source and all these other sources of CVEs, but the CVE information that you can glean from solutions that are already installed on those assets, from maybe an EDR perspective, like a CrowdStrike, right? Or some type of IT auditor, IT patch management solution that's installed. Can that information be ported in as well and considered? Because sometimes I would think that the fidelity of something that already has an agent on the physical device might be higher than sort of an external scanner.
Absolutely. You're bringing up a really interesting topic because in that same kind of context of the maturity of technology, what we have seen is that it's no longer just those vulnerability assessment tools, but the applications and other tools themselves. So I'll use my is, if you have a CrowdStrike and you have your Active Directory and you have your two-factor authentication and you've got your network monitoring, all of those are reporting independently vulnerabilities that they see. Now, they might cross over, if we look at it in that vein of matching with what their other vulnerability tools say. Well, then there's duplicate kind of records that are going into help desk ticketing systems. And then there's pieces that are so unique, duplicate, or that they're unique in themselves. And those need to be adapted as well into this visibility and context. So for your answering your question, yes, Sevco is specifically designed API only focused, ingest all of that information and allow for the deduplication, the deconfliction, and the normalization, and then the parsing of that data so that whether it's in a UI that we have, which is really simple and easy, point and click, tells you exactly what prioritizations are, the context of those prioritizations, and allows the operator to quickly and easily diagnose what's happening and automate the remediation of it by going into the ticketing systems and other workflows they already have. Very simple and easy. Or just to export the raw data that comes out of Sevco into their own systems that they use today. And that allows them to work in their existing flows. So it's that middleware piece that Sevco is focusing on to allow that ease of kind of overall arching visibility and action.
Yeah, I can see that. You've got the presence and state of the security controls. Is a control installed? Yes or no? Is it working the way I'd like? Yes or no? My vulnerabilities, my users, my applications. That's a wealth of data. I could see that being sent to any number of systems. What kind of upriver systems is Sevco integrating with today? What are some of the solutions customers are like, I need to get this data into this other existing control that I have?
Something like a Jira, as an example,
Mm.
other help desk systems that might be out there. Like I said, um, I just lost my train of thought. Other homegrown workflows. Uh, Geez, my brain just went dead, dude.
No worries, no worries.
So
I would
like I said, OG is also old guy.
well, I would think that so Jira and ticketing systems make a lot of sense. I would also think that maybe a SIM system could get value from that, or a
Yeah,
source solution, right? Are people leveraging this as part of their? Boy, I don't even know if you still call it SOAR. Maybe you call it hyper automation now, or maybe it's been rebranded
yeah,
again. But are they using this as part of the calculus for making a determination? Shut this thing off, or allow this thing, or do some type of sandboxing at that level?
yeah. The answer is yes. Thank you for fixing my mental state of exactly how people are automating it and exactly what you're saying, because we are bi-directional into the SIMs. So if you've got a Splunk, for example, we help extract the data, ensure we add context and send it back into the Splunk for the threat mitigation and understanding. So now that you have that context, like you said, with the SOAR operations, it's great because those that are, again, forward-leaning, proactive in terms of automating the remediation, it's an easy set of data that is going in to automate that particular activity and fix what needs to be fixed. So we've seen, it just depends on the maturity of the organization overall. And I think that's, if
Yeah.
I can expand a little bit there, what we really are seeing is that the organizations out there, some of them are still, head in the sand, kind of, if I don't see it, then like no mea culpa kind of thing,
Mm.
where that's like just a bad approach, really, right? It's just a matter of time before that organization gets popped or popped heavily. Where those that are taking the
Yeah,
extra
if I don't look at
steps,
that rash on the back of my knee, maybe it will go away in a few weeks. Right.
exactly. And we're seeing a lot more organizations mature themselves
Yeah.
today as an industry, which is a blessing, right? You and I both have a mission to kind of protect the planet and do the best we can to help those organizations be educated and forward thinking, not just reactionary and fixing the overwhelming set of problems. So if we can help them look forward and then automate those activities, I think everybody is winning, at least taking a step forward.
Yeah, and I like how it plays across prevention, detection, and response. Like you said, we'll just use the SIM example because it's easy, and we'll use Splunk because most people are familiar with it. But if I'm trying to create a correlated alert, some type of notification, and it's predicated on some malicious activity I'm seeing, well, if I'm seeing that malicious activity and I know it's coming from an asset that is maybe missing the latest control, or the EDR hasn't communicated with the management console in the last 6 months, or I know based on the latest vulnerability scan that it has vulnerabilities A, B, and C, I might treat that a little bit higher than the device that looks like it's pretty locked down. So it really helps me when I manage those, when I write those rules and do that correlation. And I think that trickles down to the actual SecOps folks, right? And your SOC analysts, because now they're not chasing the issues that are not the highest level priorities, right? They're actually looking at the most critical things first, which is what you'd hope they'd be doing. So I think it's a big time
Yeah,
saver. Yeah.
it's a huge time saver, and also it's helping with compliance, right? The regulations in those industries have really been cognizant on making sure that they understand every device, every user, all the software, and then the app, software and slash application and the vulnerabilities. So they're going down the proper posture path, and a lot of them are getting very serious. Or MITRE attack models
Yeah.
and NIST, to comply with those elements, because the violations, not just the embarrassment of the attack, but the overwhelming expense to deal with it, and of course the liability associated, whether it's cybersecurity insurance, right, or the actual loss associated, or even legal liabilities, are becoming kind of unparalleled than in the past, where people didn't really enforce those things. Now they are, and we're starting to see that this is a great method for keeping track of all that and monitoring that. Especially like when I'll take one extra step into identity, right? Identity access management is a really key area, and a lot of organizations are using that as their primary focus for security. If I can only let certain people access certain things, but in the manual configuration, the tools they use, like a SailPoint, for example, they have to be configured and the apps have to be configured. And what Sevco often finds are people that are accessing applications because they had the rights, but they weren't under the control of the tool that was designed to control them. Just because they were maybe new employees, they changed jobs, someone inadvertently set them up. There's 1,000 reasons why. And so having that understanding and being able to do that real time, by the way, not with batch processing, but really see that at a punch of a button, any time of day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, gives these reports and the way that you communicate within the organization to understand that situation and then fix it.
So valuable, so valuable. Well, as we wrap up here, people that are thinking about asset management, asset intelligence, vulnerability management, exposure management, all these things that you've touched on, what's what's a good go forward plan? Maybe they just don't know where to start and what to do. Where should they begin, and what should they action should they take?
Yeah, good question. I think that, realistically look inside the organizations and just see, are they a proactive or a reactive type organization first? Praying that they're a proactive organization. And if they are, then look at the technologies that help do that for them. Do not take the individual vendor, like CrowdStrike says we can do it all. Most people believe, okay, hey, it's easier with one throat to choke and one platform. The reality is one platform still only sees what one platform has. So look more objectively and holistically to technology and organizations that can encompass everything, kind of override in that. Then I'd ask, of course, Sevco Security, take a good look at us and other companies that do what we do, because whether we're the one or something else, I think that the best practice is to start getting ahead of the game and look at getting your hands around everything. And then once you get that understanding of the inventory and the security posture and the prioritization of things, then it's so much easier to know, can I get rid of this tool? Can I adjust what I am doing that'll make us tighter and more compliant? I have the reports out of, say, Sevco for the compliance reporting and SOC 2 and elements that will make everybody's job easier and help them just protect themselves going forward.
Great advice as always, Fitz. Thank you so much for being part of the Mitiga Mic.
Hey, thank you. Really appreciate it.